Boom!
Sunny day, my saplings. On this bright day, we'll be talking about Ivern runes, as it's the most asked question that I get. When thinking about Ivern runes, I like to think of them as the Holy Trinity, or that is to say, everything is in threes. Now, what do I mean by this? It means that all good things come with balance, push and pull, the eternal struggle, and Ivern is no different. What we're trying to do is maximize our utility with our tankiness and our damage, or on the flip side, our CDR, our AP, our survivability, our MR, and armor, and we want to find a balance. There are only 3 keystones we need to consider when thinking about Ivern jungle specifically, and that is how we're going to find our balance. We're going to use Summon Airy, Guardian, and Glacial Augment. Alright, starting off with the most popular rune, the rune that I take in roughly 70% of my games is of course Summon Airy. And the reason that this is the best rune for Ivern in majority of situations is because it allows you to achieve that balance that we were talking about earlier in the most efficient way possible. It allows you to be both an aggressive playmaker and a defensive support. Now, why is that? So Summon Airy reads, your attacks and abilities send Airy to a target, either damaging them or shielding your allies. Damage 10 to 40 based on level, 0.1 AP scaling, and 0.15 bonus AD. Shield 35 to 80 based on level, 0.25 AP, and 0.4 bonus AD. Summon Airy cannot be sent out again until she returns to you. So as you can see, this is the best option here for both shielding and damage. So it lets you gank and it lets you really be proactive in the early game in where Ivern's win rate is the highest. Obviously, this rune is not going to be that helpful in the late game, but Ivern wants to win the game before 30 minutes. Contrary to popular belief, he is an early game jungler. So why would we take Summon Airy over Arcane Comet, for example? Well, Arcane Comet, the cooldown is 20 to 8 seconds, obviously decreasing. But it's not guaranteed damage, and it takes too long to hit, and Ivern really isn't about full AP damage, right? So this only gives you one aspect of the balance. It doesn't give you the shielding, and it's not even guaranteed damage. So this is just a terrible rune. I would never take this rune in any game ever. Even if I'm going full AP Ivern, I still want to take Summon Airy. Now, if we look at Phase Rush, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities is going to give you movement speed. Ivern's cooldowns in the early game are pretty long. If you've already hit 3 abilities with Ivern, you don't need that movement speed because you're on top of them already. And obviously, this is a very hard condition with no reward. So I would never take this rune as well. You should never even bother touching it. On the second part of the sorcery tree, we have Nullifying Orb, Mana Flow Bind, and Nimbus Cloak. Now, I used to say Nimbus Cloak was good, but since they changed it to getting speed from using a summoner spell, it really doesn't help Ivern all that much because you don't want to waste your smite and your flash just to get this proc. So really, Ivern doesn't need mana. All the items that he builds give you mana. So the number one thing you should use here is actually Nullifying Orb. And you especially want to use this if they have a strong AP mid and a strong AP jungle. The other two here just really aren't that useful. So I will always take Nullifying Orb. If we look down to the second tier, you have Transcendence, you have Celerity, and you have Absolute Focus. So ever since the nerfs to Celerity, it's no longer very effective. It's actually quite useless. It does not give you, it gets you a little bit more speed, but it doesn't really help. So the choices really are Transcendence or Absolute Focus. In general, my play style is I'm very ability heavy. So I usually 100% will go Transcendence because it's the fastest way to 40% CDR. Now it has been nerfed a little bit because of the jungle XP nerf, so it's a little bit harder to get to level 10. So Transcendence says gain 10% CDR when you reach level 10. And then each percent of CDR exceeding the limit is converted into adaptive bonus of 1.2 attack damage or 2 ability power. This is the other advantage. Ivern's abilities Ivern's items that he builds are very supportive and they most of them all give CDR. So all that extra CDR you're buying is just converted into AP. It's not going to waste. Now, depending on your playstyle, if you're a very scrappy type of player, you can definitely go absolute focus on Ivern. Depending if I think I can have a lot of impact in the lanes early, I'll do this because you get the increased bonus damage, and Ivern's often 70% or higher in health when he's ganking. So this one actually gives you the most damage between the two runes because it's going to give you a lot more damage early on than Transcendence will. So both of those are really fine depending what you're playing against and depending what your goal really is. Do you want that CDR faster or do you want more damage on your ganks? So that's a choice for you to make. If we look at the last piece here in Sorcery, we have Scorch, we have Water Walking, and we have Gathering Storm. Now, unless you're in a bronze game and it's going to go 60 minutes, Gathering Storm is absolutely useless for Ivern. Don't ever take it. Scorch does literally nothing. The only choice here is Water Walking. We want that extra movement speed. It's really good on Ivern. You always rush Mobies anyway. And Ivern's a really slow champion. He only has 300 or 330 base move speed. So that's what I would take majority of the time when I'm going Sorcery Tree. Summon Airy really is the best rune on Ivern. It allows us to 1v1 the enemy jungler a little bit easier if we're going for invades. It allows us to stay alive more effectively, and it really just gives us more presence in the jungle than most of the other runes will do. So that's a good reason as to why we would take it. But what do we pair it up with? What are the secondary runes that we want to go with? So when I take Summon Airy, I 100% always go Futures Market. And the reason that we go Futures Market as opposed to some of the other choices here, which is in the Inspiration Tree, is because Ivern is early to mid game, like I said, right? And his items are very cheap. So the sooner you can get to your power spikes, the better. You're going to rush Mobies, you're going to rush Redemption, you're going to rush Athenes, and you're going to rush all of these a lot faster. So this helps you with the early dragon fights when you have your 2 support items before everyone else. And that should give you those early game advantages. In the mid game, it should also help you out because you're going to get to your core items quicker, and that's 100% why you get Futures Market. You are just way too powerful in the mid game when you have those items. And then the secondary one we would take is Cosmic Insight. We want basically all of that CDR. A lot of our items have actives and things like that, so it's just way too good. Some people do like to go Perfect Timing instead of Futures Market for the outplay potential, and that's really up to your play style. It is definitely an option if you think you're gonna be ganking in the lanes, doing a lane gank, tower diving, things like that. It can really help out. One thing I would caution is I would really never go Magical Footwear or Biscuit. They're both kind of traps. You do not want to wait for Magical Footwear because you are way too slow and you want Moby Boots. Second up, we have Guardian, and this is in the Resolve tree. So with Guardian here, all of our rune choices are always thinking about the late game. We're scaling, we're trying to get tankier, we're trying to keep people alive. So this is really your Janna E-Girl Ivern strategy. And so when do you want to take Guardian over Summon Airy, for example? So remember I said I take Summon Airy about 70% of the time. The other 30% of the time is kind of split up between Glacial Augment and Guardian. And when I would take Guardian is if my team has no frontline and I have to be tankier, I have to survive longer. If I'm afraid I'm going to die in my own jungle, I'll take it. And I'm going to always take it when I have like a very hyper carry I need to keep alive. If I have a Kog'Maw, I'm taking it. If I have a Vayne, I'm taking it. It's also very good against certain comps that the enemy will have that have very high single target damage. So if I'm against a Syndra, I'll probably take it. If I'm against a Veigar or a Yasuo, I'll probably take it as long as I have someone on my team that I think really needs to stay alive, or else we just kind of lose the fight. When you don't have to be the carry, when you don't have to be the influence to lanes, when you're trying to scale to late game, that's when you take Guardian. And you'll see a lot of lower elo players will really take this rune because all lower elo games go to 40 minutes anyway, and a lot of people are like, oh, my Vayne keeps dying, right? So it's your job to keep that Vayne alive. So in the Resolve tree, Guardian is obviously the most popular one. I have seen some people go Aftershock. I guess it is an option, but it's very specific. Like if you're very confident and you want to be very tanky on ganks, hitting your stuff and really initiating, you can take it, but it's just way less effective. When Guardian, your shield will proc on whoever you're shielding, even if you're not standing right next to them. And that's why it's so good on Ivern. You don't have to be next to them for the shield to proc. So I almost never, ever have I taken Aftershock. You're never going to take Grasp. Why would you? So what Guardian says is guard allies within 175 units of you, or in this case, whoever you shield, and allies you target with spells for 2.5 seconds. So there's that caveat there. While guarding, if you or the ally take damage, both of you gain a shield and are sped up for 1.5 seconds. So it actually gives you a little speed boost. Cooldown 70 to 40 seconds, shield 70 to 150 plus 25% of your ability power plus 12% of your bonus health. So getting more health is very good. And then the haste is plus 20% of your movement speed. So you actually get to speed up your hyper carry when this procs on them. And the faster you are, so you getting Mobies really helps in this case. So if we run down the list here, we don't want Demolish because we're not going to be taking plates with our lanes. We're not going to be really hitting this Demolish at all. You could take Shield Bash for a little bit more damage, but it really isn't enough to make a difference. Even though it does scale with health, you don't get enough health fast enough for it to really matter. So the best one to take here is actually Font of Life. So impairing the movement of an enemy champion marks them for 4 seconds. Allied champions who attack marked enemies heal for 5 plus 1% of your max health over 2 seconds. So it's just another way to get more healing onto whoever is on your team attacking. So now remember, for the next rune choice, we always want to be scaling. So what do? We're gonna be taking conditioning. After 10 minutes, gain plus 9 armor and plus 9 magic resist and increase your armor and magic resist by 5%. So this is gonna get us way more tankier. When we have no frontline, we need to be tanky. The other option you could take here is actually bone plating. If you're against like a Lee Sin or a Rengar or something who's gonna be trying to kill you early game, bone plating can be useful, but almost 99% of the time I do take conditioning. That is definitely the better one to me. And then if we look down at the bottom here, you have Overgrowth, Revitalize, and Unflinching. Obviously, we want Revitalize, which says heals and shields you cast or receive are 5% stronger and increased by an additional 10% on targets below 40% health. So when you're trying to save that low health 80 carry, Revitalize is really the only option here. Overgrowth would help you get tankier, I guess, for the scaling, but having just the bigger shields is way more utility. And obviously, we've been talking about balance this whole time, right? So yes, we do want to get tanky, but we don't want to sacrifice everything that Ivern's good at just to get tanky, right? We still want to have that utility, and we still even want to have a little bit of damage. So when taking the Resolve Tree and taking Guardian, we still want to go for that Futures Market and that Cosmic Insight. The CDR is too good, and we need to hit our item. The third and final runes that we need to talk about for Ivern Jungle is really that Chad Ivern build. The utility Ivern build, the Glacial Augment Ivern. Glacial Augment Ivern is a little bit unique in the fact where it gives you that reliable gank CC. So this is all about deciding the fate of the game early. When are you going to pick this over Summon Airy or Guardian? You're going to pick this when you need to win the game early. You're against a heavy scaling comp and you cannot outscale them. And when your teammates need additional crowd control. So this is going to help you slow the enemies, allow you to hit your Q a lot easier, allow your non-CC teammates to jump to that person that you have crowd controlled. And it's going to help you to get picks, catch people out. And it really is for a pick comp, right? So like if you have a Diana and a Vlad on your team, take this if you need to win early. When we're looking at this, Glacial Augment says, basic attacking a champion slows them for 2 seconds. Now, even just thinking about that, Ivern is now permanently ranged. So you have guaranteed crowd control point and click to help you hit your Q. The slow increases in strength over its duration. Range attacks slow by up to 30 to 40%, melee attacks slow by 45 to 55%. Slowing a champion with active items shoots a freeze ray through them, freezing the ground nearby. Slowing all units inside by 60%. Cooldown 7 to 4 seconds per unit. So as you can see, this is very good for ganking. It's very good for picks. When we're running down here, we want to be rushing Mobies still because we want to be getting to the lanes really quick. So obviously we can't take Magical Footwear and we can't take Hex Tech because this will just not do anything. So you want to take Perfect Timing here. And the reason you want to take Perfect Timing is for that outplay potential. You're going to be in the lanes, you're going to be diving, you're going to be trying to make plays, pushing the game forward. No, we don't need Minion Dematerializer. We don't need Biscuit Delivery, so obviously we're going to take Futures Market. It's just way too good. It's so good on Ivern. We want the Spooky Ghosts, right? That's really what we want. Like, get us some Spooky Ghosts, get us some Twin Shadows, and then rush our Redemption or Ethenes, depending what we need, right? And then Time Warp Tonic, useless. Approach Velocity could maybe be good, depending on your playstyle. So Approach Velocity is gain 15% movement speed towards an allied champion. So that's if you're lane ganking, perhaps, but in general, you want to take Cosmic Insight. The CDR on your active items is what you really want, right? So this is going to help us get more Twin Shadow procs off. And then what do you put with Inspiration Tree? What's your secondary for utility Chad Ivern, as I'm going to coin it here? Now, you don't want to go Resolve Tree because we're not trying to be tanky here. We're trying to win the damn game, right? So we need to go Sorcery. And what do we go in Sorcery? We're going to go Absolute Focus this time around. We want to have an impact before we hit level 10. So Transcendence is not going to be that big of a deal. What we actually want is the extra damage that Absolute Focus will provide us. And so let's just remind ourselves what Absolute Focus is. Well above 70% health, gain an adaptive bonus up to 18 attack damage or 30 ability power based on level. Grants 1.8 attack damage or 3 ability power at level 1. So when we're in the lanes, we want to be getting those kills. We want to be pushing the game forward. We really want to just be ending the game. And so this is a really fun play style, but I probably only use it 15-ish% of the time, maybe even less. It really depends on the other champions in the game, right? Are you going to get outscaled? Does your team have no crowd control? Boom. Come out with the utility Chad Ivern and really surprise your opponents and lane gank as much as possible. This is not a farming build. This is a rush Mobies, get Twin Shadows as quick as possible, and take over the map. Okay, I want to give honorable mention to Unsealed Spellbook. So I think this is only good when you're actually support Ivern because it allows you to swap to Smite to get use of your passive. But don't ever use this for Jungle Ivern. It's terrible. Don't use Hail of Blades Ivern. It's terrible. Don't use Predator Ivern. It's terrible. Don't use anything in the Domination Tree, really. It's all terrible. You don't need the Precision Tree. What you need is balance. You need utility, you need damage, and you need tankiness. The only Ivern runes you need in this particular order: Summon Airy, Guardian, Glacial Augment, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed my guide on Ivern runes. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for watching the channel. If you like what we do here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Come join, be one of the saplings. I bid you sun above your head and grass below your feet. Bye!